Good morning guys, I'm Chris and welcome back to this Sunday's episode of Rift Amps. Hello everyone. A couple of things. I'm just wiring up this Ainsley SIG. I have to get this one done because he's coming on Monday to sign off a bunch of chassis before he goes on tour, and this is the last one that I need to get finished. And I'm really feeling the day that I lost last week when I had the accident in the van, because it's getting a bit close now. I'm running out of time. So yeah, I'm working really hard just to get everything done and out the door. I've had a couple of mystery packages arrive, mystery boxes, so we'll get those unboxed at some point. I'll show you what's inside and what's going to go in the queue. But I've just signed off the transformer designs for something new. Been working on a prototype for a while, super secret prototype, and it required transformers which have an impedance that doesn't exist. You can't buy that off the shelf from anywhere, so you've got to get a custom wind primary impedance. What we did with the prototype was used a transformer that was close enough but not quite bang on where I wanted it to be, and then we used that kind of built in a fudge factor. But a sample transformer was sent across. I've installed it in that prototype chassis, and the amp is now delivering everything it needs to. I predicted it perfectly. I preempted the way the amp would respond if it had the correct impedance on the output valves, the load that I was after. And it's landed exactly where I want it to be, and I'm so excited because it means I can now move forward with this new amplifier, which I can't wait. I just can't wait. I'm so excited. I've got to keep quiet about it. I can't tell everyone what it is, or anything like that. But I'm so pleased that this. Basically, I found a new way to squeeze a very particular sound and feel out of a pair of output valves, and I'm so happy with it. It's so good, and I can't wait to show everyone, but it's all super secret, so keep quiet. Shh, don't tell anyone. But yeah, it's very good. My new transformer winder for production stuff is so good. Modulus are good, primary windings are good, transformer equipment are good, but this new company that I've been using for production stuff, incredible service, incredible quality. The guys up there, they know what they speak guitar language. I was talking about this on another video. Could not be happier with the way it's going so far. Anyway, they sent across a sample for this output transformer, and it's knocked it out of the park. Honestly, it's so good. I'm so excited. So I can't wait. I can't wait just to get building, so you guys can hear this thing. It's really, really, really cool. Anyway, so that's that. Good news. Thank you to everyone that ordered a t-shirt. Blimey, you ordered t-shirts. That was insane. I got so many orders through. So I've just spent the whole morning processing those. So if you ordered one, they should be with you very, very soon. They are printed and shipped direct from my supplier. So I don't handle them here. I just process the paperwork this end. But thank you to all those who ordered. You've made me very, very happy, because I did have that imposter syndrome. No, what's it called? I just had that fear where they weren't going to sell and I shouldn't be doing merch and it wasn't going to work. But clearly we got the design right, and everything. The 1-800 heads, that's what I was going to talk to you about. clearly a lot of you missed the memo that they were a limited run, and I'm not building anymore, and you can't get them. So stop asking. It's nice that that people are interested and you want me to build more, but it defeats the point of them being a limited run. And that's something that really annoys me about manufacturers when they do that. People buy these things on the basis of exclusivity, you know, and as soon as people realise they can't get them, they want them. And then the manufacturers do that thing that I hate, is that they do a second run, which is not right, in my opinion. You shouldn't do that. You should protect the customers that did sign up in the first place. So I'm not going to do any more of those 800 heads, but I will do another limited run of something and something different soonish. Now we've got everything lined up and our supply issue sorted. I can do something else, but the 800 heads, I'm not doing any more of those. So stop asking. If you want one, you're going to have to buy one second hand. And good luck prying them out of the hands of the current owners, because all the feedback so far from those guys has been amazing. They love it. In fact, I know Stuart won't mind if I read this out. I know he won't mind. He said, the amplifier has arrived, unpacked and played through. Such a sweet little amp that very much punches above its weight. Sounds more like 3 watts than 1 watt. Very active controls, an instant Thin Lizzy with a mild boost. It sustains, sings and screams without much encouragement. Very musical top end and very eager. It seems to have plenty in reserve from the power supply, so it has more thump than it has any right to have. And that's through an open back 2x10. Oh, it also gives nice transparent detail too, with no mush. The cleans are great too, an inspiring piece of kit. I mean, if that's not validation, I don't know what is. So if you missed out, I'm sorry. If you did order one, if you were one of the very kind people that signed up all the way back in November to get one, thank you so much. I appreciate it. You know, it's worth the wait. They're killer little things. So yeah, but you know, as I said, if you don't respect the limited run thing, you're not doing your customers you're not giving your customers any respect, which is I don't think is right. So they're going to stay limited, not going to build anymore, and we'll move on and do something else. I forgot to say, sorry I didn't do any sound samples in the last video. I was just too busy, too far behind. I didn't have the time to do it. I've got a couple more I'm just finishing off, so I will, if I get time, do some sound samples to show you what these things sound like. But I'm sorry that I didn't get that done in the last video. I'm just too time limited with deadlines to get other stuff out the door to faff around doing proper sound samples. So, you know, sorry about that, but it's just the way it is. So if I bring you down here, this is Ainsley Lister Signature serial number 55, the one that's going to Italy. And the customer has sent a really, really nice set of EL34s for me to buy and install in the amp for him. A really cool set of, are they Mullards? I think they're Mullards, yeah. Which are going to go in the amp. So when this is built, that'll be really, really cool. That's a nice thing. So this one is nearly done. The board is in, as you can see. I'm just wiring up. I've done the front panel, or the pots along the front panel. Done my power supply. I'm just doing the preamp valves now. Then I need to do reverb and effects loop. Then I can do my heaters, my shielded wires, my inputs, and then I can fire this one up on the bench. So this should be done by the end of the day, all going well. But you can guarantee that my phone is not going to stop ringing today, and I'm going to lose a load of bench time to answering phones and emails to people who you know, it's fine. You can ring me, you can talk to me if you need something doing, but it's the problem with being a one-man band is you can only do one thing at once, right? So if I'm answering phone, if I'm talking to someone on the phone, on email or whatever, I'm not building or repairing amps, and so you lose that time. And when you're deadline, maybe I should have switched the phone off, but all that does is it means when I turn the phone back on, I'll have a million voicemails and a million messages through WhatsApp. So then you spend your whole evening deal with that rather than dealing with it in small chunks throughout the day. You can't win. There's no proper way to do it, I guess, unless you get someone else in. But that's not what I'm going to do. So I'm moaning again, aren't I? I'm really sorry. I am moaning. Oh, did I just? No, I'm all right. Got an email. Got an email from my distributor. Apparently, Eminence are really struggling to fulfil orders. So it looks like we may struggle to get governors for Ainsley's signature builds. We're working on it. We're trying to source stock from elsewhere, but both the UK and the European distributor are out of stock. And no, they're not out of stock. Sorry, they've got what I need at the moment, but for my next order that I've already placed, they're quoting delays of up to 2 months for Eminence to fulfil those orders and get those speakers to me, which hopefully isn't the case. Hopefully it's not the case, but I knew it would happen. I'd sort one supply chain issue out, and then another one pops up. It's just the way it is. Just the way it is. It's so frustrating, so annoying. That's V1 done, so I can get V2 done now, and I can never remember which wire I do first. I think I do the I do that one first. I do the input grid first on V2. Yep. Right, I'm going to carry on with this and I'll show you something else. It's not quite a mystery box because I know what's inside, but you don't know what's inside it. So shall we do an unboxing? And first of all, it's addressed to the amazing Chris, which I'll happily take that, but you know, I am probably more modest than I make out on YouTube. But so that did make me laugh a little bit. Okay, so what do we have in here? And we'll find out. I just need to double check that there's no personal information. Looks like we've got a box of bits, doesn't it? A bag that says spare parts and wire if any use. And it looks like there's an FNT and some so-sos in there, along with some bits and pieces, other caps and resistors, some hardware, some cloth wire. Looks to be quite thick, 20 gauge maybe. Another bag of bits, random bag of bits pulled out of Ozig amp, old amp. I can't read what that says. So we've got some switches, some pots, some jacks, some other bits and pieces as well. This is getting exciting. Got some valves in bubble wrap. Some more valves in bubble wrap. Looks like we've got some 6v6s and a 5y3 working but makes a little noise. Okay. Mains cable. So here we have a chassis, obviously. Let's be super careful with it. We've got ourselves a 5E3. Okay, so here it is. Here is a 5E3 chassis. Now, I've got the emails from the chap called Ian, who has sent this in to me. Quite an interesting story on it. So I figured we'd go through it, we'd understand and recap together the history behind this particular amplifier and what the plans are to do with it. So his email says, "Hi Chris, I hope you're doing really well. I was going to start by saying, even though we've never met, I know that we'd get on. I used to be a pro photographer and also love my music and guitars, and my granddad used to be a radio engineer in World War II. Anyway, reason for contacting you, and I'll try to keep this on point, so apologies if I ramble. A few years ago now, I used to have a Lazy J20 and I sold it, mainly because it was too dark and bassy and it started picking up French radio randomly. Anyway, I've always missed the 5E3 or a 5E3, and I picked up this home build 5E3 off eBay a few years ago. It's based on a tube amp Doctor kit, but had upgraded components. Now, I can see that might be correct because this transformer here, the mains transformer, the 6452L, that's the one that Tad's sell. The amp sounded really lovely, really great, but also had this annoying hum. On a spectrum analyzer, it shows as 100 Hz and 55 decibels. I initially took it to a tech here on the Isle of Wight, who decided to fit a humdinger mod, this pot here, which I wasn't that happy with that he'd done that, and it didn't really fix the hum. Having watched your wonderful YouTube vids and with my small electrical knowledge, I set about fixing some of the bad wiring and have mainly used modulus parts and their cloth covered wire. In short, it worked really well and I had the hum down to near whisper levels, but it was still there. I tried changing the first filter cap from 22 microfarad, as it was, to a 33, which is what I can see installed here. So the amp probably would have had a 22, 16, 16. The original 5E3 values are 16, 16, 16. So the 22 was already an upgrade. And he's now put a 33 in there. But to no avail, and then the hum has since started to get worse. A lot of people criticised my heater B+ wiring, and I tried redoing that, making it a lot worse in my view, and the hum noise increased exponentially. He doesn't say who criticised him. Maybe that was on a forum. The annoying thing also, I think the tech who worked on it snipped one of the ground wires from the transformer, and the person who built the amp originally had one of the grounds attached to a chassis bolt with that wire cut too short. I tried extending the snip wire using heat shrink, and as you can see, I've tried to move the ground to an unused standby switch. This one up here. So I think he's talking about this green wire here, which is probably your center tap on your heater. I would guess so. Oh no, there's one there as well, so that could be your high voltage center tap. I tried moving the ground to an unused standby switch mainly as a test to see if that would help with the grounding. I redid the mains to the power switch wiring as it was wired the way the TAD schematic showed, with power going to the switch, then the fuse. Okay, so yeah, he's got his live coming in straight to the fuse and to the correct terminal on the fuse, then to his switch. The neutral goes straight to the switch, so he is switching both the live and the neutral at the same time, which is the correct way to do it. Anyway, in short, I now have a poorly amp. The rectifier, red plates, oh dear, and the hum and noise are just obscene. My mum sadly passed away around the same time, so the amp has just sat there, and I've been feeling quite despondent about it. I've uploaded some images to Dropbox, which I'll link to here. Blah blah blah. In short, Chris, I appreciate I've rambled. I just wanted to send it to you for repair, but I didn't want to throw good money after bad, and there's things like, does it need a new power transformer due to wire cutting, and generally would it be better to start again? Especially with my poorly implemented 470k blocking resistor, which looks embarrassing. So he's added a 470k grid stopper here for the phase inverter. That's a good mod to do. In my view, things like the first two tube sockets need replacing as they don't support the shielding cans. Yeah, so these Beltons are for they haven't got the skirt on, so you can have a shielding can on. So these are for like EL84s, so you can attach the spring clamps. The power transformer and general overall wiring. Annoyingly, when it was running, it truly sounded so sweet. It was amazing. Anyway, Chris, I thought I'd consult you first because I didn't want to just send it to you because I felt really embarrassed, for want of a better word. You'd probably put it on YouTube as an example of what absolute crap looks like, and it might also be beyond economical repair. But at the same time, I miss it. Your guidance and advice is appreciated. Well, after receiving that email, I did call Ian on the phone, and we had a good chat about the amplifier, the history of it, what he wants to do with it, and all that sort of stuff. And we agreed that he would send it in to me, and I would go through the amp, do my thing, whether that means fixing what's in there, or whether we make a new board and put a new board in, or whatever. We want to assess the amplifier first. So now it has arrived, and he sent me a further email that says, "Hi Chris, I've just packed up the 5v3 amp to send to you," and he sent me some photos of it all packed up. "I'll get this posted over the next day or so, blah blah blah. The valves I've packed up separately. There's a Philips 5x3 that was red plating and feels a bit loose wobbly in the hand, for want of a better word, but it was working. And another JJ 5y3 that works just fine, but it likes to make a little ambient noise every now and again. Okay. All the other JJ 6v6s and the preamp valves were all working fine the last time I tested the amp." Random bits. I've also included a bag of bits that I took out of the amp, including the badly soldered alpha pot, but I've also included spare components I had / was going to replace and experiment with, along with some of this spare modulus cloth wire. I'm not expecting you to use any of this in the rebuild, but thought it might be useful to you either now or in the future. Overall tone. The amp, when it was working, was bright and so musically sensitive that just changing things like the higher gauge modulus wire altered the tone for the better. That's probably a lead dress thing rather than the wire itself. The normal volume was always absolutely silent, whereas all the noise seemed to emanate from the bright input, and there was a constant 100 Hz hum through the amp with both volumes at 0. I can never make my mind up about valves. The JJs are more aggressive and hard wearing, whereas the electroharmonics are smoother and better for cleans. It was also sensitive to carbon comp / metal film resistors, whereas the film resistors were quieter but less musical, and the carbon comps were more musical but lifted the noise floor a great deal. This is all the information you're well aware of, and I was very keen to keep the overall musicality of the amp whilst keeping the noise floor as low as possible. I used to play the amp with the channels jumpered in a quietish home environment. Now, in that environment, guitar players regularly are quite zoned in on all those tiny details, and very different to playing in a pub or a live venue, rehearsal studio, where you've got a lot more ambient noise. When you're at home and you're really focusing on your sound, you do pick up on those little things. as the bright channel was definitely bright and I predominantly used the Les Paul. I like having the 100 nanofarad coupling caps in the phase inverter, as I preferred the bass and tone from these rather than changing to a lower value, which I was thinking about because of the slightly loose 5E3 overdrive tone. I also liked winding the amp up for higher gain tones, and if there's a way of tuning that gain ever so slightly so there's less loose fart and slightly more martial without sacrificing the clean tone, over and above adding that 470k grid stopper, that would be really welcome. The amp was used with a Weber 12A125A, but before it went wrong, I changed to a Celestian Blue, which he says he liked more. The pots. God, we're getting there, don't worry. We spoke on the phone about the pots. The amp has the Modulus branded potentiometers in. I measured these, including the taper, and personally, I thought they were higher quality than the Alphas. I preferred it if they stayed, but you are the master builder, your choice. I also had CTS in the old Lazy J and couldn't stand that they did nothing until 2 on the dial. Yeah, those cheaper CTS flatbacks have that dead zone, which frankly is not good enough. Filter caps. When I bought the amp, it had a 22 microfarad in B+1, which I've included in the bag. I fitted a 33 and I was trying to tighten the bottom end and reduce noise. I think it is that it has put too much stress on the cathode bypass cap, and that's what's been causing the new noise. When I measured, it was 56 decibel at 100 hertz. Then I did the rewire of the B+ rail, as someone suggested, which made things even worse. These are just my ramblings, Chris. You know far better than me, so I'll leave the ultimate decisions up to you. I'd also like a slightly oversized speaker cable with it as well, if that's okay. Kindest regards, Ian. Right, whew, we got through all of that. Let's have a look at this 5E3 chassis as it currently is. And let's start with the power supply. So we'll come over here, we'll zoom in, right down, oh, poopa. And we've got a mains cable coming in, nice chunky mains cable. We've got a strain relief here. We've got our safety earth going to a dedicated bolt on the side here. We've got our live and neutral, as we discussed before. Coming up to the live goes to the back end of the mains fuse holder, good, and then onwards to the switch, and the neutral comes around the back. And there's a cap on the back of this switch here, probably to reduce switching noise or any popping when that happens. Got some nice twisted wires going on in there. If I spin it around this way, you can see the reds, the high voltage goes to our rectifier socket. We've got protection diodes on the socket as well, although I'm not entirely convinced about the quality of some of that soldering. A lot of that needs to be tidied up. Get you out of the way for a minute. Yellows are the 5-volt heaters to power up that rectifier. Okay. So that's all what's going on there. So we've got a humdinger mod here. So we've got the two 100 ohm resistors coming off. So we've got an artificial center tap, and he's added the other tech added a pot there to balance the heater hum. Unfortunately, he's also left the high voltage center tap connected. Wait, what? Wait, what? So the high voltage center tap, this green one here, green and yellow here, comes up. This is the one he talked about that was spliced. There it is. This goes up to a switch. And the other side, on the same terminal, is the heater center tap, because this one has got a center tap heater, which he's got there. And then the other side of the switch goes to ground here. So where's the ground connection? For the rest of it? Well, how is that grounded? Look. So this black wire here, I'll pull it all out. sorry, goes to our switch. The other two terminals on the switch are the two centre taps, the high voltage and the heaters. But where does that ground? Are these two caps not grounded? What? I think these are grounding through... What, has he elevated the grounding scheme here? Is that what he's done? Some people overcomplicate very basic grounding schemes. Both centre taps ground to here. So, but where does... Has he got an underboard there? I can't see where this ground rail grounds. Has he got is there a connection under there? That's very bizarre. That's all going to need sorting. You overcomplicate stuff, you run into problems. Turn off. Right, okay. Sorry, there we go. Right, so that's all that. Oh, that wire's just come out on the heater. That wire's just come out of the socket right there. 250 ohm cathode bias resistor. And there is a Sprague 2525 bypass cap in parallel with it. Looks like it's got hot. That value there, 250, that's the original value. But I'm telling you now, this transformer, even with a 5Y3, puts out too much voltage. Really, you want 270 ohms there. Okay, we've got a 4K7 dropper, B+1 to B+2. Original value was a 5K1, but a 4K7 is the modern E12 value. We've got a 22K here between 2 and 3. That's fine. Carbon comps throughout. We've got Sozo caps, which personally I'm not a fan of. That's a subjective thing on objective thing. I don't think you get a significant tonal upgrade or performance from the caps for the money you pay for them. Panasonics. That's what you want to go for. Okay, Sprague there, Sprague there. These two 100K plate resistors look like they're a little bit toasty, but it could just be the lighting. And then we've got usual bits and pieces. So signal wire here passing across the board. Good idea to make that shielded. And the same with these two here, if you want this thing to be as noise free as possible. Right, what I'm going to do, zoom this thing out, is I'm just going to solder that heater connection back on. Then we can fire this thing up and we can take some basic measurements, get a baseline, get a data set for how the amp currently is, measure its output power on the bench, and do all that kind of stuff. We'll plug in the CompuBias so we can get a very quick bias reading. And the output transformer, that's the only thing we haven't looked at, again, this is the TAD unit. It's actually a very, very nice output transformer. See, it's got a paper bobbin. It's wound just like the original triads. I think these are German made. I can't quite remember off the top of my head who actually makes these for TAD, but it is a very sweet sounding transformer. So that's often it's often worth leaving that in if you've got one. They are very, very nice. The 6452L transformer, nice big stack, a lot of power on tap. I think if this is one of the later ones, it might have enough heater current to run 6 L6s. I'll have to double check. Anyway, I'm just going to go ahead and fix that, and then we'll fire it up on the bench and get some measurements. Okay, a little bit more progress on the 100-watt black panel bassman build. This one's for myself. This is my own toy. So I thought I'd show you guys the whole process on it. Remember, Fender didn't do a 100-watt black panel bassman. They only did the 100 watts in the silver panel stuff. So we've got... it's quite a cool build. Anyway, I'm doing it in the twin reverb chassis because I've already got the head cabinet from the 135 Christmas special. Board design is now done. I'm up to version 3 on the board, just tweaking things, moving things around. For those interested, I have decided for the time being to ground the phase inverter supply node with the rest of the power section rather than to the preamp side. You can go either way with it. You just go whichever is quietest. On Fender, they grounded the phase inverter up on the brass strip here, but that's not what I'm doing. I've decided to ground it over here, but I'm going to do an overboard connection here. So if needed, I can always move it to the preamp and ground it with the preamp node if that ends up being quieter. So that's kind of the plan with this, and I've made the board flexible enough in terms of its layout and design to allow me to do that, because as we all know, sometimes what's best on paper isn't what's best in practice, and vice versa. So we want to allow ourselves that flexibility to change where we ground the phase inverter if it ends up being quieter one way over another. Anyway, so what I'm doing now is, remember we're building this in the twin reverb chassis, so we're not going to use this hole here. This will be V1, V2, V3. Not using this hole here, and this will be V4 for my phase inverter. We kind of optimized our board design, and it's going to sit roughly there. Means I've got the shortest wire runs I can up to each tone stack for each channel. V1 and V2 are for the bass channel. V3 is the 2 gain stages for the guitar channel. Although I won't be using this as a guitar amp, it will be a bass amp. So I think roughly around there is where I want it to be. So I'm going to have a board mount probably around here, because this is the first job I want to do, is to drill my board mounts into the chassis and get all of that right. Now if we're looking over here, the problem we've got is, here's the choke, and that's going to sit on the underside of the chassis in this location, right? Obviously mounted upside like that. But that means I can't, it's going to interfere with the kind of space that I've got to drill a board mount. So I can roughly trace around it, just enough to eyeball it from above. And then I can say, right, well, if I want this roughly there, and I think that's quite nice, I can't have a board mount in that vicinity there because it's going to interfere with the choke. So looking at it, I think the best place for it, and if I'm doing the one at this end, we will want one in the middle because it's quite a large board. So we could go roughly there, couldn't we? Right, and then the other one, maybe we could go central as possible. I'd rather be up this end, but this is high voltage here. And I haven't really left myself a lot of space there. So because of my choke, do we go here and then have, yeah, let's do that. Let's have a mount there. Right. Let's have a mount there. We'll move this one further up this way. So cross that one out and have something roughly there. Then I've got a nice triangle in terms of, I mean, I can't get all, one in all corners. So we'll do that. The only other thing I need to consider, just like we do with the choke, is the mounting of the output transformer. So if I just roughly square that in there, so I know where I want it to go, like that. My output transformer is going to mount on those holes. So it's all quite central, really. So basically, I can't go anywhere near those holes either. And I don't think we're going to have a problem with that, because I can just put that back in there and this isn't going to interfere at all. So I think that's good. That's what we're going to do. So what I'm going to do first of all, before we do anything else, is drill these holes in the board and then transfer those holes to the chassis. Get those holes drilled, and then that's the template, sorry, the board perfectly mounted inside the chassis. And there you go, board is in. 3 standoffs, 1, 2 and 3. That's going to be nice and stable and secure, especially once it's secured down. I'm happy with the position in the chassis. Look how good that looks, right? Yeah, progress. So I can now go ahead and drill this out for all the eyelets and swage those in. That's that job done. And I can start populating this chassis. So I need to get my valve sockets in, my blanks in for the holes I'm not using, get my transformers mounted. I also need to make my bias board up here and get some other bits and pieces in. But yeah, this is coming on now, isn't it? Great news. Okay, amp is on the bench. I have resoldered that heater wire to the bulb holder. The amp has warmed up and we're out of restriction mode, so we've given it full power. We've currently got a anode to cathode voltage of around 320 volts and cathode current of 37 milliamps each side, puts us just under 12 watts, which for a set of 6v6s, I mean, these ones are rated for 14. An old set would be rated for 12, so that we'll call it 100% for the time being, which is fine. Okay, first thing we're going to do though is we've got a little microphone up against the speaker. So I'm going to just sweep the controls so you can hear any hum or hiss. I will boost the audio in the video to make this more obvious for you. Obviously it won't be that severe in real life, but I think it's important that I show off what the controls are doing, any hum level. So both switches in the up position, remember this is switching grounds and stuff. So if we start with the normal channel, to be honest with you, that all sounds fine. That's pretty normal. A little bit of hiss as you turn the thing up for a 5E3. Absolutely normal. Although I could hear some parasitic oscillation there. We'll go for the bright channel. Okay, definitely some hum there alongside the hiss. Okay. And finally, we will do whatever the standby switch is doing. Now that's an interesting hum. And then let's do that sweep again, normal channel. That's interesting. So with the volume on 0, the hum is there. If I bring it up to 12 o'clock, the hum disappears. So that switch there, is switching the high voltage centre tap to ground. I assume that's what it's doing. But when I switch it, we don't get a drop in voltage. It should disconnect the high voltage from ground. So what's going on there? We get a tiny drop, about 5 volts. And an increase in hum. Very interesting. Right. Let's stick it through the scope. 150 millivolt RMS sine wave going into the front of an amplifier. We'll start with a normal channel, input 1, tone control on 0. 5E3, so around 12 watts output into 8 ohms. We're looking for around 10 volts RMS. Right down here, the top yellow figure there. So at the point of clipping, we're getting 8.6. We'll call it 8.5. That puts us around 9 watts. That doesn't sound too good, does it? Treble control gives us some overdrive. Okay, why are we wobbling? Let's just reference the scope to chassis. Although I'm not convinced that any of the grounding scheme in this amp just yet. Hasn't made a blind bit of difference, is it? Right, bright channel. Okay, point to clipping, back it down. Again, 8.5 volts. Treble control. This amp is down on power. There's something not right with it. It's not happy. There are some strange noises going on as well. There's something definitely strange going on with this amplifier. I'm not convinced that we have a healthy amp, which I guess is why it's in with me, isn't it? Okay, right. So what is our plan of attack? What are we going to do with this? Well, you know my rules. Always start with a good foundation, which would mean get your power supply right, your B+ rail right, and your grounding scheme right. Build a house on strong foundations. Build an amplifier on strong foundations. So I think that would be my first port of call, is to simply redo all the power supplies in the amplifier. Get that right. Get it good, get it proper, get it how it should be. Going to remove that humdinger. We don't need that. Absolutely not at all. We're going to use the correct. Well, I'm going to use the center tapped winding for the 6.3 volts, and we're going to ground that to the right, to a dedicated point. Looking at the board, it's a turret board, which is fine, but in order for me to fix any underboard wires, the board's going to have to come out, and if the board's coming out, I may as well put something better in, right? I may as well do the job properly from the beginning, which means removing all of this, taking it all out. I'll talk to the customer about whether he wants to keep the carbon comps in, which is fine. Happy to do that if he's okay with a little bit of hiss. It's the hum that seems to be his main point of contention, which is what we want to fix. I don't want to test that transformer as well, because I believe with a 5Y3 it should be putting out more voltage than that, off the top of my head. The only other thing he said, do you remember, was the other 5Y3 that he had, the Jan Phillips 5Y3, was red plating, which is very bizarre. Shall we quickly plug it in and see if we can spot it doing that? I'm going to have to rewire those sockets anyway. He does have both screen and grid stoppers on the 6v6 sockets, which is a good thing. So with this 5y3, he was right about it making funny noises. Anyway, in we go. Amp on. So with the JJ we had about 320 once it had come up. And this is putting out more. They normally put out less. Is that one faulty? Do we have a faulty 5y3 as well? The modern JJs nearly always put out more voltage than that. Let's get a new one. Yeah, that's running 10 volts higher. Also, I don't think I've ever seen a rectifier valve red plate. Have you? I've read about it, but I don't think in real life I've ever actually seen a rectifier valve red plate. Right, new JJ5Y3 going in. We'll let it warm up, let it come up to temp. About the same as the Jan Phillips. So his 5Y3, we'll go back to it, putting out 10 volts less. I wonder if it's at the end of its life, or reaching the end of its life. And it's actually making some funny noises as well. I can hear it doing some funny things. Weird noise there. That is why I don't use 5U4s, because they make the same noise as that. Yeah, this one. It's 5 to 10 volts. It's 10 to 15 volts lower, isn't it? Yeah. Not happy with that. Okay. So what have we learnt? We've learnt we've got a very interesting amplifier here. Now, this is a home build. Customer knows that. A professional has not built this amplifier. And I think it would be fair and reasonable to say that I've seen a lot worse from pro builders than what I'm seeing in here. This is kind of your standard of your, I'll be polite, your middle of the road homebrew kit builder. There's some good things they've tried to implement and some neat stuff going on. It's just not pro level, but you wouldn't expect it to be. And so I applaud Ian for sending this in because he wants to get it right. Yes, there's definitely a hum there. There's some hiss. I can hear some other weird stuff going on. So I think the best course of action is rebuild it properly. It's not the cheapest course of action, but customer's been through that already. He's tried to modify it. He's tried to get it to do certain things. He's tried to make improvements. But I think this is a combination of lots of little things in there that have all stacked up against him and against the amplifier. There's not one big smoking gun in here. It's lots of little things that we get right. It said we'd start with a strong foundation and build strongly and sturdy on top of that. We'll get the amplifier that he really wants. So that's what we're going to do, I think. I'll go back. I'll give him a call now. I'll explain to him what I found, what I think, what my suggestions are. We did talk about that on the phone previously about, you know, where to go with it possibly. But my suggestion, we'll put a new board in it. Here's one I made earlier. So we can get a board in there, try and reuse as many of his components as we can, save him some money that way. Obviously, if we'll test them all, and if they're good, we can reuse them. If they're not, we will replace them, and we'll get him a nice amplifier. So that's going to be the plan. So no more updates on this amp in this video. There will be more incoming videos as we go through this. Now, this isn't at the front of the queue. This is further back in the queue. So again, you might not see this for a while, but I will do updates. I might do little bits and pieces on it every now and again. Sorry, I just realised that this was blocking my face. But apart from that, we've got a nice strong, I think we've got a nice strong, no, not a strong foundation. We've got a good starting point and a good direction in which we need to go. But as I said, I suspect that this is just a combination of lots of little things all stacking up and adding up against the amplifier. When if we just do some things properly, get things nice, get things neat, you know, the art of amp building, we'll end up with quite a nice amplifier. Yeah, so let's do that. I'm having a bit of one of those really proud of myself moments. Do you know what I mean? Not bigging myself up at all, but sometimes you do something, you think, yeah, that's cool. That's really cool. So I've just finished assembly on this Ainsley Lister signature head and cab in black with the basket weave cloth, gold plates, knobs, Eminence Governor speaker. That's an amazing looking rig. I'm sorry, it really is. I know we've done head and cabs before. We don't do many of them. Most people go for the combos, but our customer in Australia, where this one is heading, just like the last one, went for a head and cab in black. It looks so smart. It really does. I am really, really pleased with the way this thing has turned out. It's just wonderful. Just wonderful indeed. Excuse the mess. I couldn't be happier. That's amazing. And I think the customer will be too. So I've got to get this boxed up now. Shipping booked. Shipping down there takes roughly 7 to 10 days, depending which way the courier takes it. Sometimes they go via Singapore, the Middle East, then Singapore, then onwards. Sometimes they go via, I think they actually go via South Africa. Not entirely sure about that. I will double check, but yeah, there you go. Really, I'm just so happy with it. It's come out great. It looks great. Sounds great. Ainsley has already signed this one off, so we can tick the boxes and deliver a killer amplifier to a very lucky customer. Well, that's it then, guys. Thank you very much for watching once again. As always, please give this video a thumbs up. All of your comments and questions down below. Subscribe if you haven't already. We're on the way to 7,000 subscribers. If you're feeling super generous, why not join the channel like these guys have, and I will catch you all at the next one. Right, so a week later, I've had a chance to have a quick look at the BMW. So race debut last weekend at Donington Park, and it lost compression. Absolutely rubbish. So here it is. Now, these BMWs are a nightmare. So I'll try and show you. Here are all the ignition coils. Right, and there's usually a cover that goes over these that protects them. Now, you don't run them on the race car because the ignition coils get very, very hot, and if you run the cover, the coils overheat and fail, so you don't run the cover. Problem without running the cover is that water drips down from the scuttle panel and fills up these two spark plug bores. And what I found is that both of these were completely full of water, and I'll insert some footage now of me blasting that out with compressed air. Cylinders 5 and 6 completely full of water. So I've fully dried those out, put it all back together, and it's still down on compression. So I don't know whether that's a red herring or whether that was the problem. Now, is it rainwater that's in there or is it coolant? We don't know. It could still be another problem, and maybe, as I said, problem is after the race on Sunday, driving home, there was so much rain that I think they just filled up anyway. It's a real problem with these, and I need to find a solution. You know, how do we keep the rain out when you're travelling, but still keep a way of stopping the ignition coils from overheating? I don't know. I don't know what the fix is for that. Perhaps we just buy the cover and just have it in transport mode when we're travelling about, and then for the qualifying and race you pull it off. Maybe that's the answer. I don't know. What do you think? But at the moment this is still dead in the water. Haven't managed to get the fire. If I get time, I'm going to pull all the spark plugs out and do a compression test, find out which hole is down. Hopefully it's not more than one, but best case scenario on this is going to be a new cylinder head or head gasket. Well, cylinder head's got to come off. Best case scenario. Worst case, that there's one of the pistons got a hole in it and it's going to need new block. And then, well, if you're going to swap something in, where do you go with it? Do you put something with bigger power in, or do we go back to a 4-cylinder and run it in the same class that I run the Mazda in?